All right, let's get going tonight. It's Friday. Welcome to the Grief and Recovery Show. It's every Friday evening around between 6:30, between 8 o'clock. It just depends. It just depends on the week. It just depends on the day. I go live and just rant until we're good. No, just jokes aside, we are going to dig into we're going to dig into grief and recovery, and we're going to dig into forgiveness tonight. But go free flow. I love to have these shows, and I love to make sure that there's no rigid schedule. There's nothing to really dig into. I just love to be able to just go free flow based off inspiration, and really enjoy just sharing from my heart. And so, with that being said, I wanted to give a massive heads up and a huge thank you to everyone who's been sponsoring the shows and those who have been really growing with it. It's been exciting. It really truly has been, and it's getting to the point where now it's like with everything that's happening up to this, really truly up to where. Where my story has evolved into. I don't know if y'all have been catching up on the LinkedIn newsletters, but these sponsors have been really just playing a part. I want to give a huge shout out to Carlotta Thompson with Tax Strategists of America. I kid you not, if you missed if you're over on Facebook right now and you're just tuning in for this live stream, I promise you that if you go to the pinned video of my profile, what you'll see is a link down in the first comment to her upcoming webinar. I promise you won't regret it. When it comes down to this lady knows her stuff, I'm not kidding. She's an ex-IRS agent. Big, huge thank you to her. And also the tiny home plug. If you haven't checked into tiny homes, if you haven't looked into tiny home neighborhoods, you are not going to want to miss out on this. So please go double check that out and make sure that you go get hooked in where you play best. But with that being said, let's dig into the show, man. I'm really excited. I don't know about you, but this week has been insane for me. Okay. It has been 90 to nothing from 7 a.m. to some nights 10 p.m. That's how I have felt the entire week. Lord bless it. So last week I was talking about how do you protect your heart when it goes into forgiving someone? How do you break that apart? How do you dismantle that fear? There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, man. I kid you not. I can't believe that this week is already, it's already Friday. It blows my mind. And so when it comes down to everything under the sun, when it comes down to all the stuff that's been going on, there has been so many chances and opportunities that I've had to try and get mad at myself. There's so many times where when it comes down to digging into taking personal responsibility, what are the things that I can control? It's amazing because in the beginning, when I started to want to forgive someone else, I never realized that it started with a heavy internal work for myself. I never understood that in the beginning because I would always focus on the other person. And what happened was I would always be in this rat race, this hamster wheel of wanting to forgive. And y'all forgive this massive red dot on my face. I have promise you I didn't get punched. It's a big old as it. This is what happens when you can't grow a beard. You gotta get ingrown hairs. And so, jokes aside, though, I remember that I had to make sure that I didn't let someone else's indecision affect my decision. And it sucked for a while because I remember just being in so much pain and turmoil that I was so mad at my dad because of all the different things that he did wrong and all of the things that he did to hurt and abuse and just really didn't care. That's what it seemed. And I say that because of this. Until I took personal responsibility for what I could have done better, even though I was growing up and I could have you have to find something that you could have done better. There's something that you could have done to improve your past actions in hindsight. And that what that did was it gave me a sense of control, and it gave me the sense of being able to find my true north and take the ammunition out of that person's gun before they could fire it. And what's amazing is that I remember every single time I would try to blame somebody for what I was doing. And it took somebody slapping me in the back of the head, telling me what I already knew to finally swallow my pride. And what's amazing is that doing the deep work on yourself, taking responsibility for what you could have done better. It's okay. It's not excusing what they did. It absolutely isn't. It's about taking the power and the control back into your own hands and making sure that even if they're here or not, that you can analyze and take control back with the one thing that you can control and looks you dead in the face every single morning, whether it's party or not. All right. And I'm telling you, yeah, all of you ladies out there who are just putting your face on or taking your face off, depending on what part of your day you're starting, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, we hate wearing masks, right? And yes, I just compared makeup to masks. Don't get in the comments. Just don't. I'll troll you back. Just don't. But when it comes to being your authentic self, when it comes to being sincere, being true to yourself, the number one thing that holds us back is the power that we give and we put in the hands of other people, and they're living in our head rent free, and they don't even know it. That's what's the wild part about it. And I remember when I contemplated suicide, I was 16 years old, and no, I'm not 17 right now. Don't crack that joke. But just lack of facial hair. But I promise you that when I was 16, I was so burdened down because I felt like a failure. I felt like such a failure that my existence was causing problems to other people. Okay. And what took place was when I decided to put the focus on me, because my entire effort, my entire life up to that point, I was passive aggressive and I was putting the blame on other people because I thought it was their responsibility to do their part before I did mine. That is the most arrogant and most entitled thing anyone could say, because at the end of the day, no one controls you except you, period. And that may be a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, but it's the one thing that set me free, because that was the thing that held me back from forgiving my dad, because I was like, he did all this. That's why I did all this. I get it. I get that they did stupid stuff, the evil things. There are so many times when it comes down, and y'all hit the share button while you're watching this, wherever you're seeing it from. If it's on LinkedIn, I see all of you guys over on LinkedIn. Thank you for tuning in. But even though if you're on Facebook or whatever it is, hit the celebration button, hit the heart button, hit the share button, because someone needs to see this tonight. Because tonight, this is the number one thing that holds every single person back from walking in freedom. Because at the end of the day, when you put the focus back on yourself, what happens is that you gain that power back over the thing that you truly can control. And that's taking responsibility, your ability to respond, taking that responsibility back from the other person. Because here's the thing, blame puts that responsibility on somebody else, but your ability to respond is truly in your own hands. Okay. So what I'm saying is that when you take that focus off of somebody else and saying that it's because of them, no, that's not the truth. The truth is that you have had the ability the entire time. Now, when you swallow that horse pill, right, of that swallowing your pride, I promise you on the other side of that, you get this like, all right, I want to get back down to business. And what's amazing, hey, Nicole, and that's one of the biggest things with, when you take that power back, that responsibility, you're not excusing what they did. What's going to happen is that you're going to feel that confidence. It's going to be like your heart is beating out of your chest, because what happens, there's insecurity and inferiority that is at play. But what happens is when you can finally take that back, your ability to respond is no longer someone else's power. And you take that back and you analyze exactly what you could have done better in hindsight. Forget about what they did for a moment. Journal out what you could have done. Do that in the left column everything they did wrong, and in the right column write out everything you could have done better. Because here's the thing, everyone does what they believe is the right thing. I know that sounds crazy, but think about it. Hitler, he killed people because he thought it was the right thing to do. He was so convinced because it was the right thing to do. Attila the Hun, he massacred people, genocide for generations, with dear God, because he thought it was the right thing to do. People do evil things because they are convinced it's the right thing to do. Now, why that may happen, variables in that laundry list can start to now and end next century, because there are so many different things, because everyone's situation is different. But here's the thing. If you focus on what they did wrong the entire time, guess what's going to happen? Your focus is going to be consumed with that one thing. And what's amazing is that when it comes down to literally changing the tide, I personally had to break the generational curse in my own life, in my own family. 14 years later, we're still going through it. Promise you. Every single day, every single week, whenever we get a chance, we always reflect back on things that could have been done better. And there are trauma that is still carrying over. Like rollover minutes from T-Maybe or T-Mobile, all that. That's a joke for them. But when it comes down to rolling it over, a lot of times that trauma, it is so deeply rooted in our heart, in our soul, that over a period of time, it begins to reveal itself. And that's what's wild. It is it when I understood that, it took me time to understand that. Yes, I knew that was the case, but when you go through it and something pops up after 10 years of someone being passed away, it hits you different. Oh. I kid you not. In my landscaping business right now, I make sure that I do differently with my guys than my dad did. Maintenance on equipment, you better best bet that Lord Jesus, I'm doing a whole lot better than my dad. My dad would ghetto weld everything. He would redneck jerry rig it. I mean, I was wild. And I had to learn how to operate that equipment. Good Lord. Anyways, back to the story. So, when it came down to me letting go of that anger, it wasn't, Nicole, when it came down to me letting that go, it was one step at a time. I first had to understand and really truly understand, because you can acknowledge something, but really understanding it means that you believe it too. The understanding and belief are so intertwined, because what happens is you can understand it, but until you believe it's the reality and it's the truth, you'll never act accordingly. And so what happens is when information goes from information, when you have information, it goes to revelation. What happens is actions reflect it. Okay. And so revelation's cool, but then you have to be able to put it into practice, and that, what's funny is that putting it into practice, I mean, you put it into practice. There's no other way to put it. And so it takes practice. And so a lot of times shame will try to turn our history into our identity, and will try to tell us that because then we didn't know, we're not good enough to change. Like, how stupid is that, right? And what's wild is that a lot of times those people that we put boundaries in place with, we want to restore that relationship with, we are just so pissed off and angry. A lot of times it can come back to where it can really truly resort down to, we haven't had a talk with them yet, or we haven't journaled and got it out of our hearts, to put it on paper, download our thoughts down to paper using a pen, right? And that's the biggest thing. A lot of times we haven't done that deep work for ourselves, but a lot of times that anger can be resulted because that person may have not taken the action yet that we seen that they should, or they could, and Nicole, if you could rephrase the last part of that what you had mentioned in the comment, that helped me out to better understand. But when it comes down to letting that go, there's so many different things. And I would encourage you to go register for the workshop that's coming up on the 24th, I think. The Hit the Grief and Recovery workshop link, and just go get registered for it, because we had a couple people in this last one, and I definitely want to open it up for yourself and others that may be interested. Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to unpacking this, there's so much that needs to be unpacked. And, those who came to the last workshop will tell you that it was just a process of elimination when it came down to all the different variables and everyone's story. There's so many things that goes into unpacking the anger, unpacking the hurt, unpacking the regret, and unpacking where do you start in forgiveness, because that part of it also, you need to protect your own heart too, right? You got to be able to put boundaries in place and protect your heart. And it's amazing how a lot of times we want other people to change, and we want other people to be able to dig in where we need to. And I don't know if your faith is that, but I'm a Christian. But when it comes down to when it comes down to taking that step and letting go, there's part of me where um, there's part of me that the spiritual side kicks in, and I have to make sure that I have to, same example with this person, when it comes to marriage, my wife and I sometimes expect things from her that I need to expect from God or myself. And vice versa. She does the same thing. We're 2 years married, all that jazz. We're still learning, we're still brand new, brand new as a baby's butt. I get it. But when it comes down to expectation, when it comes down to expectation and being able to really, really, really dig into letting go, that sometimes takes it takes time. It takes one step at a time, peeling the layers back like an onion, because we're not simple beings. We're complex people. As a human race, we are complex. We're a masterpiece with legs, right? And when it comes down to really breaking that down, there's so many different variables and so many different things that take place that letting go isn't easy. And it does take that ongoing effort and that diligence and that perseverance, because it truly isn't easy, and it's definitely not an overnight thing, not one bit. Oh my goodness gracious, I would have loved for all the pain just to be, I just hook up a USB to me and just download it and I'm good. I would have loved to do that, but that's not how we operate. I wish it was. And and that's where celebrating the small wins, celebrating the things that when it comes down to really, 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 being okay with progress. A lot of times our shame comes from trying to be perfect. It sucks too. I remember sitting on my bedside contemplating suicide. I felt like everyone else had the control. Everyone else was telling me how to define my identity, and a lot of times are that anger, that frustration, that pent up, that tension. A lot of it can be resulted from us not feeling like we can have the permission to take those steps ourselves. A lot of times there are so many areas of our lives that are unattended to that just pop up out of nowhere, and you're like, why is that irritating me? And I love to use the anger and the irritation as a reverse engineering the like buoys, like how sonar in the Navy, and how they will use sonar, and especially in the Air Force, they'll use sonar to locate different things. And I love using the negative emotions personally, and this takes work. Okay, this isn't something you're like, oh yeah, flip the switch, I'm good. No, trust me. And you got to want it too, and that's the other half of it. You got to want to be able to do this work internally, because a lot of times people don't, and that's what keeps them back from forgiving someone else. It sucks. It really does. And so when it comes down to letting go and really doing that work on the inside of our hearts, we have to be okay with not being okay. I had to recognize that. Just because I made a decision to turn my life around doesn't mean that everything turned around with it. And especially when it comes to family, they know everything about you. Right? My dad knew everything about you. He knew me since I was born. It came from him. Hey, no pun intended. We're all grown adults here. We'll be fine. But like, let's be real. And I was intimidated to go back to my dad and tell him that how I felt. I was ready for him to tell me that my feelings were worthless, that I didn't have any, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know my head from a hole in the ground. At that time, it was true. But at this point, I freaking knew where I needed to address things with him. And I promise you that when I encountered him, I had to understand how he thought. I needed to identify his personality type. Rough around the edges was his personality type. How would he handle this, and when would be a good time to bring it up? Right, that was number two. And because at the end of the day, when it came down to everything, I had to extract myself from the situation. I had to cut my emotions out, even though that felt impossible. I had to be the bigger man, so to speak, in this situation. Okay, and with I had to be okay with not getting the biggest, best response from him, and anticipating that he'd be his typical self. And he was. I cussed him out every single day that we had a conversation. I mean, I promise you, when I tell you, if you go back and watch the other live streams, I promise you that when it comes down to when I say that I had creative cussing classes, yeah, some people speak in cursive. My dad spoke in cursing. And believe you me, my redneck came out, and I definitely fired back quick with it. And man, and what's interesting is that even though I did what I knew I shouldn't have done, most people were like, "Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah, you got to put him in his place." Nope, that's not the goal here. The goal is restoration. The goal is repairing the repairing a relationship that would catapult and spark a whole entire family coming back together, which is what I'm experiencing now. I had to be stepping the gap. I had to be that. I had to be that person who would hold on to one side and hold on to the other and make sure that I didn't break that bond. Because when I tell you that it's worth it, we're still talking about it to this day. About all the stuff that happened behind the scenes, all the different restoration, all the different repairs that happened to the relationship. Me and my dad's relationship got rehabbed like a house that was, that was like a hoarder's house that had been sitting there for 20 years. That's the best picture I can put it because it was a train wreck. And I can tell you that swallowing your pride, swallowing everything that has nothing to do with it, man, is it worth it? My sister and I used to not talk. My brother and I, we were just distant. It's just because of life, and we were 10 years apart, so kind of that affected a couple things. When it came down to putting in the work, it was a day in and day out battle. Every day felt like a war, and I promise you when I say that there are rewards waiting on the other side of when you choose to forgive. Forgiveness is not letting it go. Forgiveness is taking the responsibility back into your own hands of what you could have done better and owning it, and then letting them know that you have and going to talk to them. Don't let it affect your ability to respond. Forgiveness is no longer allowing that person or anybody else, including yourself, to affect your ability to respond. We'll get into that in a second about forgiving yourself. Because when you take responsibility for what you've done on your part, what you could have done better, just find something. Just find something. Be on an exploration journey to find something that you could have done better. Because when you lead with that, my friend, is when people begin to open up and own their responsibility. And that is why it starts with that. Expecting somebody else to forgive you or to accept your forgiveness of them, that they're expecting an apology from them, never works. It never starts with them. And if you always sit there and wait for them to come to you, you'll be sitting there till you're dead. There's two things we're guaranteed in life: is death and taxes. You can get both of them. But on your way there, what's your quality of life that you prefer? Like, I'm genuinely asking that. Because everyone's like, well, I ain't got to forgive him now. I'll see him in heaven if I see him there. Great. That's understandable. But it's going to affect how you respond. And whenever someone else I promise you, and I promise you that if you don't forgive anyone who reminds you of them in any way, shape, form, or fashion, it could be their job, it could be their industry, it could be their hair color, it could be something that you shared with them so intimately that literally that would literally that would just trigger something. And everyone who reminds you of that person who hurt you, you're going to throw up walls without even realizing it. And people are going to wonder what's going on. Like, why are they behaving this way? Like, what? He just said roll tide. Like, what the? But what happens is when you don't address those things internally and do that work, the world will remind you of it, no matter what. And so that's the thing. That's where when we do the deep work in our own heart, get a journal. Please get a journal. Definitely go subscribe to the newsletter that's here on LinkedIn. But when it comes down to, sorry, I'm not on LinkedIn. I'm streaming on StreamYard. But seriously, get a journal. Get it out of your head. And don't be ashamed for feeling angry or feeling pissed off. Don't ever feel that like that. It's not necessary. You don't need to. Because when you identify the areas of where you can take back the power to respond better moving forward, you can take that and lead with that when you identify the right time and their personality type. You know how they are and how they how they see you. Because of everything the damage is done, right? You can't go back and turn back the clock. But what happens is when you're able to go back and identify and say, okay, look, man, I know what happened, and I know that I can't change anything. I should have done this, and this better. And they're more than likely, so it can go one of two ways. Oh yeah, no, you should, blah, 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 and just lay into you. And you're right. Yeah, you're right. That's what I'm saying. That's why I said it. You can get stern with them without being mean, right? And you're like, and the magic words. This is something that will neutralize anything. I understand. I totally get it. Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. Yeah, 100%. So you agree? No, but I totally understand that you're crazy. No, just don't say that. But please don't say that because that's just going to go and blow everything up. Be mindful of your words and how you say it. Okay. They say a raised tone and that ignites anger. A loud voice ignites anger. Proverb says, right? And so with a soft tone, lead in with humility. Okay, especially if they're older, right? Speaking from experience with my dad, I had to do that with my dad, and it was the most cringing thing. Oh my god. I'm darn near spit a loogie on that one. It was hard. It was not easy. But what happened was when I led with vulnerability and humility and identified what I did wrong, guess what happened? He mirrored it. He reciprocated what I led with. And this is the key that will free anybody from regret and especially forgiving themselves. Because here's the thing, when you are going to confront somebody, you got to identify the right time of day, right? The right time scenario. Is it a good time to bring something up that's heavy? Do they have a clear head? Knowing them, right? Will they receive it? Because it's not about you saying your piece. It's also them registering it. Bing. Okay, I get it. Whatever. Because a lot of times, they can lay into you, but also too, they can admit what's done wrong. And I'm telling you, when that happens, it's such a breath of fresh air. But you have to then make the decision to drop it, because you cannot go back to time and change what happened. Now what happens is if they admit to fault, boundaries. Saying, look, man, I understand. Yeah, exactly. And so then that's when you can segue. If they admit fault, that's path A. And talk about path B if they just spit in your face or whatever. Because that's an easy snip of them getting out of your life, loving them from a distance, right? But when they admit fault, I'll say this. I've had tendencies in the past where I'm like, yeah, wait, what? You said huh? You said two funny words that ain't never come from your lips before. You know what I mean? My dad was that guy. Like he would be like, he would lose his other arm before he admitted he was wrong. But I had to lead with humility. Okay. I had to lead with humility and to lead with vulnerability, but also to say, okay, you know what? If this happens, I'm out because I'm definitely not going to stand for it. Okay. And there were times where I had to lead with it and say, look, man, I need to talk with you about something, but I'm not going to have this and this happen. I'm not going to talk to you. If you do this, I'm shutting down and I'm walking away. Is that clear? And that should help someone right there because that's something that I had to put a staple in and be okay with. Because I kid you not, man, my dad would lay into me like nobody's business. You would thought I'd been a debt collector or something, man. Dear God, like, what did I do to you to piss you off that bad? You know what I mean? Like, ugh, it was rough. And so after a while, that began to become softer. It began to become more gentle. I had to protect my energy. I had to go, like take some me time to get in prayer, get in some journaling, get all that stuff when I was pissed off because I needed to not respond out of anger. I needed to respond out of a level head. So I had to take time to myself and recuperate. And that was the tough part. That was wildly difficult. Oh, that was so hard. Because at the end of the day, what happened was I decided to better myself and make a difference for my own well being. It had zero to do with how my dad would respond. Zilch. Nada. Nada. As they say in Espanol, nada, right? If you said Spanish, that country accent, that's what it would sound like. Yeah, I actually speak Spanish, so don't troll me in the comments. I will definitely speak back to you in Spanish and know exactly what you're saying without Google Translate. Gotcha. But anyways, I had to really make the decision for myself. I had to really, really dig in and really because when I contemplated suicide to restoring our relationship, there was a lot of internal homework that I had to do. It was not easy. Oh my God. It was the furthest thing from it. There were so many days where I asked myself, is this even worth it? This is something I actually want to do. It was wild. And, it's interesting because it took a long time for me to, oh gosh, it really took me a long time to really be okay with it. And it's through some days I'm wondering if it's even worth it. Because here's the thing. When you go into repair a relationship, it actually does take time. It doesn't happen over the course of a month, a week, 3 months, 6 months. It may not even take course of a year or 2 years for my case. I'll say this. It took about 6 to 12 months for my dad to be like, I think that boy's actually changed. Because here's the thing. When you make a change for yourself, some people need to see it over time. It happens. It has zero to do with them. It's just when someone else says something, right, and they have a track record of something, you gotta wait it out. I'm like, I never really thought of that. Okay, well, okay, well, trust is rebuilt over time. Because here's the thing: at the end of the day, you may forgive and let go, but also too, your trust with that person needs to be rebuilt, and that is freaking okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's important to remember that because we beat ourselves up harder than anyone else. Like, I'm not kidding. When it comes down to everything under the sun, when it comes down to us wanting to do better, when it comes to us just wanting to improve as a human being, a lot of times we feel stuck for whatever reason. No matter if it's someone that lied to you when you were a kid, that you've been believing that you're not good enough, that you're like when you were someone told you last week and it just reminded you of something else that happened when you were younger, or the other week, or the other month, or something that's haunting you. There's something that's deep inside of our hearts that's keeping us back from forgiving someone. Because here's the thing, we want them to be responsible. Responsible, the able to respond. Read it backwards. What if they don't have the ability to respond, nor do they care to have the ability to respond? What you going to do? What are you going to do? Especially a colleague, and you got to work next to them the next day. What are you going to do? That's the thing. That is why, when it comes down to making sure that you identify exactly what you could have done better. Shoot. Heck, there was one thing this week I had to make sure that I'm like, crap. And I had to go through, crap, what did I do to cause that disconnect? What in the freaking world caused me to do that? Here's the thing. At the end of the day, leaders take responsibility, because leaders, those who do the work on the inside of them, on the inside of themselves, at the end of the day, those who take the charge lead the pack, right? But here's the thing. The makings of a leader is so much more than that, but part of being a leader in your own right is being the first to take responsibility. And here's the thing. I want to encourage you to go register for the upcoming Grief and Recovery Workshop. It's called Profit and Presence. This is something that I don't want you to miss out on. The layout is right there on the landing page. It's extremely straightforward. Nothing complicated. My goal for you is to lead with peace and understanding. Heck, we just had our first inaugural one after 2 to 3 years, 3 to 4 years. And people left with a breath of fresh air. And I want the same for you. At 10 o'clock at night, and this is our cutoff time, even though I did it late tonight, please hit the share button. I know there's someone that needs to see this, that needs to hear this message tonight. We dug into a lot of good elements, a lot of good mechanics of forgiveness tonight. My hope is that you are encouraged. I really, truly do, because at the end of the day, I want you to be able to. And I'm going to start scheduling these things out so everyone gets a heads up, so it's not just spontaneous anymore. So, okay, got you covered there. But please don't hesitate to register for the upcoming workshop. I want you to walk in freedom. I don't want these lies to win anymore. The workshop is free, so there's no strings attached at all. There's no, I'm going to upsell you stuff or anything like that. So none of that creepy, crazy, weird stuff. Okay? I want you to be able to walk free. Okay? So with that being said, I'm going to sign off for a short episode tonight and go spend time with my wife and be present with her. But at the end of the day, if you have any questions and you catch the replay, please drop them in the comments. Hey, Mohammed, I just saw your comment in there. I apologize for not seeing it sooner. But I want you to be able to breathe and be able to really grow as a human being, not just for yourself, but also for your family, for your spouse, your children, and your coworkers and colleagues and your boss, and even your employees, if that's the position you hold. We are all a leader in our own right. And this is the one thing that holds us back. So with that being said, I can't wait for you to see the newsletter for this coming Sunday. So be sure to go sign up for the newsletter, but make sure that you sign up for the email version of it too, because even though it's on LinkedIn, we have it on email too. So you can get it in a series as well. And so this is going to be edition 7 of the newsletter. We are going to cross over 2,000 subscribers in not even 2 months. What? man, God is good. Right? But anyways, appreciate your involvement tonight. I appreciate you carving out time, and I appreciate you engaging, because at the end of the day, this is all about you. This wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, and I just appreciate your vulnerability and your boldness for coming on and just connecting. Because at the end of the day, if people can't get hope, then this is useless. So, that being said, thank you again to our sponsors, the Tax Strategists of America, and also to the Tiny Home Plug. If you haven't gone to check them out yet, you definitely don't want to miss out, but make sure you register for the upcoming workshop. This is going to be awesome. Man, I'm telling you, I'm trying not to yell at the mic, but I cannot wait to have it on the 24th. I believe that's the date. Go to it, double check it, let me know. griefandrecovery.co/workshop. Definitely don't want to miss out on it. And I promise you, when I tell you this, is that, oh, that's a podcast link. I mean, yeah, you can go to the podcast link, I guess. Go check it out, and do not hesitate, because again, like I said, it's free 99, free, free 99, FREEE, free, and go check it out, because at the end of the day, I want you to be able to walk it peace of mind and freedom, whether it's the first time in forever, or to be reminded and get some things in place that you may not have in place. It's time to get those tools installed, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. See you guys.